When it comes to containing costs in healthcare, everyone has their 2 cents to give. But what do those of us in the business of health insurance have to say? This is Health Sense, and I'm your host, attorney Adam Russo, CEO and co-founder of the FIA Group, a firm with over 25 years experience navigating this ever-changing industry. Join me and my guests as we make sense of effective ways to reduce the skyrocketing cost of healthcare while improving quality outcomes for patients. The only thing it will cost you is 30 minutes of your time. So let's get right to the bottom line and reimagine what healthcare could be. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Health Sense with me, your host with the most, Adam Russo, the show that gets right to the bottom line on ways to reduce healthcare costs while improving quality outcomes for patients. As always, we are sponsored by the FIA Group, the leading cost containment firm in the country focused on ensuring that everyone can get access to high quality, low cost care. As I love to say, the main problem with healthcare in America can all be tied to Einstein's definition of insanity. Doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. That's our current healthcare system in this country. And it's January. Happy New Year, everyone. So as you know, most people, their new insurance policies start January 1. So deductibles are higher, co-pays are higher, premiums higher, and you're probably getting worse care. We're here to try to fix that. As always, and I know all my listeners love to know what my word of the day is, today's word of the day is toxic. Now, we're not talking about Britney Spears' album back when I was in my 30s. It's a different toxic, and my guest today will tell us all about it. We have a special guest today, and I've been looking forward to this interview with him for a long time now. It's actually been 10 years ago today that I met this guy, January of 2016. I never forget, I drove to the airport. I think it snowed straight, 45 days straight in Boston in that period of time. And there was a snow emergency in my town. So unless you had an emergency, you literally were told to stay off the roads. Well, it was an emergency. This gentleman wanted me to meet with him to potentially do some business together. And I'll never forget it. My wife, Kelly, we had just 2 kids at the time. And my daughter, Maeve, I think, was like a month old. And my wife was outside shoveling to get me out of the driveway at 5 a.m. Well, I'll never forget it. I go straight into this meeting at the top of this beautiful skyscraper in downtown Philadelphia. And when I walk into the meeting room, everyone has seen, at least over the past couple of weeks, you've probably seen repeatedly the movie Christmas Vacation. Now, if you remember the movie, when Clark Griswold walks in to meet with the boss, the desk was like 5 miles long. And the CEO was at one end, literally pretending to take phone calls so that he wouldn't have to talk to Clark. Well, that's how I felt walking into this room. This gentleman was all the way on the other side. I barely could see him. And there were 20 suits on each side of the table. I'm sitting here like, what did I get myself into? But I went with it. And now 10 years later, we're very good friends. Now, interesting, when I tell people, I truly feel this person is part of my family. They often say that the only person in your life, male figure, that actually wants you to do better than them at life is your father. That's what people always say. Well, I've always thought that to be the case as well until I met Danny Schwarz, because he fits that bill 100%. Today's guest is Danny Schwarz. He is the founder of HRS, Healthcare Recovery Solutions, and the founding partner of Schwarz Schwarz as well. Danny, welcome to Health Sense.
Adam, thank you so much for having me. I love the intro. What I really am surprised about is I thought we were talking about NFL playoffs and who was going to the Super Bowl this year, and you were asking me for my commentary on the picks. And I was going to throw a loop out there in terms of maybe including Myles Garrett's sack record, but we spoke about that. And I think that, obviously there are other topics that you want me to talk about. So I'm thrilled to be here. You look terrific, my friend. What's really remarkable is over the past decade, I feel like Adam is not only family, but someone who I am so proud of in terms of not only his accomplishments on a business level, but on a personal level. I mean, this is a really, really special person to me. We have similar stories in terms of life's experiences. And I think that that's the true testament of who Adam is. And I am just absolutely thrilled to have the opportunity to be with Adam. I'm proud of you, brothers. Keep doing what you're doing, my friend.
Well, I'm going to try. I wasn't expecting those nice words coming from you. I appreciate that. So for all my listeners, just, my children don't refer to him as, Mr. Danny or Daniel Schwarz. They call him Uncle Danny. And now my entire family calls this guy Uncle Danny. Little bit of background. Danny was raised in Philadelphia. Huge Philly, Philadelphia fan, all teams. But Danny was born in Philly, earned his undergraduate degree from Tulane, stayed at Tulane for law school, also earned an MBA from the George Washington University and master's degree in trial advocacy from Temple University's Beasley School of Law. So Tulane, interesting choice.
I did have the opportunity to spend 7 years there. What was really amazing about it is coming from the Northeast to see the culture and the environment in terms of the South. And it was really a remarkable and a wonderful period and chapter in my life. Anyone who was listening from the South, you're blessed to live in such a beautiful and a wonderful area. And I miss it tremendously, although I still visit quite often. And my last time in New Orleans was actually when I went to the Super Bowl to see the Eagles do what they needed to do to the Kansas City Chiefs last year.
And let's not forget who pushed you to go. It was me, because you were actually contemplating not going.
Well,
but it must be nice when the Eagles constantly go.
I'm going to share a story about karma. And the morning of the Super Bowl, my daughter and we actually were staying at the Eagles Hotel. Directly adjacent to my daughter Campbell was Saquon Barkley and his family. And sure enough, team members and other people gathered around the Barkley table because it was his 28th birthday. What was really wonderful about that is his daughter, who at the time probably was 6 or 7 years of age. And the morning of the game, she asked everyone at the table to hold hands, say grace, and sing happy birthday to her father. And when I heard that, I ended up telling the waiter, could you do me a favor? Could you give me the check, please, for Mr. Barkley and his family and everyone who was at the table? And the waiter said to me, would you like me to mention to Mr. Barkley that you're buying him breakfast? I said, absolutely not. Just let him know that the table next to him wanted to wish him happy birthday. And sure enough, my kids now take credit for the good karma that we gave that morning for the Eagles winning the Super Bowl in New Orleans.
It's amazing how you kids take credit, right?
For everything.
I mean, mine are already doing it now, and the oldest is 12.
And deservedly so.
In addition to, your world travels and all those fun things, you also serve as counsel to multiple labor unions, health and welfare funds, and health plans all over the country. You want to give me some detail as to the type of organizations and plans you represent?
Boy, you're really dating me. I've had the good fortune of providing subrogation and third-party litigation representation to multiple groups around the United States over the course of my 35 years of practice. And, separate and apart from representing carriers like AIG and different groups on the insurer side in terms of handling their catastrophic subrogation claims, really the best aspect of my life has been dealing with the people, the guys and the ladies who are part of labor organizations and Taft-Hartley plans here in the United States. So it all started in the airline industry, which I've had the good fortune of now working the better part of 25 years, representing just about everyone that you see working in airports here in the United States, whether it's the people on the ground, whether it's the people that are answering the phones. As recently as 2 or 3 years ago, it morphed into now representing people in the shipyards, military bases, auto manufacturers, enormous groups with enormous size and plans. In addition, I am now considered National Safety Counsel for the Machinists, which are about 700,000 members here in the U.S., Central State Teamsters, an enormous number of building trade groups where I've represented international presidents who have been involved in situations where toxic exposures ultimately caused enormous costs for funds and plans, and put together litigations from a recovery perspective here in the United States. What's interesting is my practice evolved from not only working in the Philadelphia area, but I've had the good fortune of handling cases all across the United States. So I really have had a wonderful experience, not only in terms of working with people and groups, but understanding the landscapes of different areas across the United States, as you have experienced in terms of your FIA operation, in terms of it being a national connector in terms of providing subrogation and recovery opportunities, cost containment opportunities for groups literally across the United States, which is something I too pride myself on. And that's the nature of our partnership in terms of our working relationship, having done this for the better part of a decade together now.
So it's pretty clear you've established yourself as a fierce enforcer of workplace safety and a defender of the workers that put their lives in the day every single day. I mean, there's no question about that. Now, one of the things I want to focus on really quick as we pivot is that word of the day, toxic. Now, I know you get it. I know I get it. But for most of our listeners, they really don't understand what a toxic tort is and why you focused on that in the first place. What was the passion that brought you to where you are today to create software, not only to defend the workers and to make sure that they have safe places to work, but the software, the analytics to help identify situations where subrogation opportunities are available?
Great question. So it really has been bifurcated in terms of two areas. So preliminarily, what we did, and it's now potentially going to be adopted here in the United States by the FAA and approximately 40 labor groups. We are meeting with Bloomberg in January to discuss the significant import in terms of utilizing data and information to understand how to create safer work environments for people in the transportation industry here in the United States. That was one of my preliminary patents. I actually have drafted and obtained 3 patents during the course of my career. It's enormously impactful in terms of aggregating information, understanding how to make workplace safer, whether it be not only in the transportation industry, but at shipyards, lumber mills. We represent the woodworkers here in the United States, and just understanding the cultures and how information can create a safer work environment where both employers and employees benefit. Because I think at the end of the day, everyone wants to make sure that their workers and their workforce is healthy, safe, and is being provided for. In the alternative, I had a second patent, which is in the healthcare platform, which is a mass tort data analytic platform that's used by millions and millions of people here in the United States, which provides the algorithms in terms of identifying those high-cost claims.
So I want to focus in on that. So obviously we all watch the commercials, right? Plenty of attorneys that supposedly represent plaintiffs in, whether it was asbestos back in the day, et cetera. You obviously were looked upon and are still looked upon as one of the top, most prolific, established attorneys across the country in this world. But let's be straight. Not every attorney not only has the accomplishments that you have in the courtroom, but you then also said, you know what? I'm going to create this HRS platform where I'm going to patent and utilize the algorithm that you developed to identify opportunities. How'd that happen? What in your mind went from, okay, I practice law, I have commercials, I do advertisements, people contact us, and we might represent them, to creating software that actually identifies who these folks are?
And that's another really good question. So it really began in terms of the impetus, in terms of when we developed the safety platform, probably the better part of 20 years ago. And then obviously, I'm not an advertising lawyer. I've been brought in by the AIGs of the world to identify, catastrophic recoveries in terms of reducing mod rates from a workers' compensation perspective. And I thought to myself, why doesn't healthcare have a similar set of data analytics to look at all these mass tort opportunities where you have all these groups that advertise on television, and yet there's no real formal mechanism for recovery purposes in terms of ensuring that everyone stands to win. So that includes not only member, but ultimately the employer that's paying these enormous dollar amounts for the medical care. So what we did was we utilized some of the analytic platforms from a safety perspective and assimilated those same technologies and those same elements to figure out how we could ultimately work within a data subset where there is infinite information, and how do you find those needles in the haystack to prevent instances where there are groups that advertise and they're collecting money on behalf of members or people, but our plans are never being reimbursed and we're never getting money back. And that really isn't fair because, those groups are providing terrific healthcare benefits, terrific platforms to make sure that they get the best care possible. And ultimately, if there is a recovery, how do you then deal with that mechanism to ensure that everyone is made whole?
Now, Danny, when you came up with this idea and implemented it, were there other firms already doing similar things and you just took it to another
Nothing.
level, or literally was
Nothing.
it invented?
That's why you and I both possess the patent because, obviously, we were at the forefront in terms of providing a vehicle for plans, employers, funds, insurers to put them in a situation where we're leveling the playing field. So it's about information equality. And that's really what we're providing for the people that we work with through FIA and HRS, and are enormously successful in terms of effectuating those platforms from a recovery perspective.
If you are just tuning in, you are listening to Health Sense on Healthcare Now Radio. I am Adam Russo, your host, and I am talking to Danny Schwarz, CEO and co-founder of HRS, Healthcare Recovery Solutions, and the law firm of Schwarz Schwarz. All right, Danny, we've all heard about the asbestos litigation from decades ago, all the tobacco litigation. We see the commercials on Camp Lejeune, the Roundup litigation. What's the next big one? You've always talked about monitoring the legal and liability landscapes and asking that question. You've developed an airline workplace safety system that tracks occupational injuries amongst airline workers all across the country. What's the next big thing that people still don't know about, but that is coming down the pipe?
You mean we're not talking about playoff football?
Again, I don't have a playoff team. You can talk about it.
So let me try answering that. So right now, there's a variety of cancers and exposures. Many of you have heard of the forever chemicals, the AFFF litigations, and ultimately, we are in a universe now where it is incumbent upon insurers, health plans, healthcare providers to further support the underlying epidemiology with their information to ultimately identify where those recoveries are germane as it relates to toxic exposure types. So, for instance, we have provided and have worked with Adam and the FIA team to go through tens of thousands of zip codes to identify areas where there is water contamination, where these forever chemicals are relevant and exceed the appropriate limitations, where there are clusters or communities that have been enormously impacted by, obviously, the ingestion of their water, as well as other potential exposure types that they may have sustained as it relates to work, which ultimately creates the cancers, which are the high cost claims that people are paying for. So we had a client come to us and say, how can we improve upon identifying subrogation opportunities related to the very cancer types that we're seeing our members get? The non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, the CLLs, the NHLs, the AMLs. So if you're talking about benzene exposures, that would be relevant to AMLs. If you're talking about Roundup exposures, those would be NHL instances. And through our ability to identify latency periods, different elements related to what is necessary to calculate and quantify not only the claim type, but also the amount that's lost, the FIA and the HRS team has been put in this unique situation where we're the only ones in the country that are able to afford these opportunities for the groups that we work with. So right now, as you asked, PFAS are very, very relevant, particularly with the forever chemicals. Billions of dollars have been settled out. And ultimately, you want to make sure that your plan is getting those dollars back related to the underlying medical care and establishing the appropriate liens and ultimately ensuring that those recoveries, if they go to individuals or groups, ultimately matriculate back to the underlying plans and the employers that are paying for that type of medical treatment for their employees.
So, Danny, in your illustrious career, right, you have all these different cases all across the country that you've worked on. Give me that one case that, for whatever reason, just sticks right there at top of mind that you'll just never forget. Whatever it is that made it memorable. Can you just give us some insight on just one case?
Adam, I've had the good fortune to handle countless number of litigations, cases. If you're asking me what's going on right now in terms of opportunities that would be relevant from a recovery perspective for the groups, as we both know, in 2026 is going to be an enormously impactful year in terms of Roundup. We have millions and millions of dollars that we've tracked related to our clients associated with medical costs, claims that we're going to be reimbursing to these groups by IDing the individuals. Probably the case that I'm most excited about is my son is a third generation lawyer guy in our family. So my father started our practice 60 years ago. My son, Alex, who is a Penn Law graduate, an amazing asset to our firm, has one of his first jury trials coming up.
Wow.
And to me, I think that right now, working
He's
with
got
him,
the face. Listen, if I was on the jury and I just see him just stacking up with a bunch of women, he'd be all set.
he's going to be,
He's a nice boy. He's a
he,
good person.
he,
You can
he,
just tell.
superstar. What I'm really proud of is the fact that he's also cracked the LSAT code. So, in unison with his success in terms of the courtroom, spent all weekend preparing and getting ready for the cross-examination of an expert, coming home and talking to me about that. That's a pretty remarkable moment for me. And my hope is that, our practice will continue to be in existence for 100 years. So we're going on our 60th year. My hope is that my son will take it to its 100th year. But in unison with his practice, he now has 60 employees that perform LSAT training just because he cracked the code.
You both, your dad started it,
right?
Yeah. Then you.
I feel very, very blessed.
So, I always love to ask this question because I never know what answer I'm going to get. Any cool insight? Just weird job that you might have had, the coolest job, something outside of the stuff you're doing now in your illustrious career, something that you've done in the past that no one would ever expect. Danny Schwarz did that?
So I'm going to share my third path. I was in business school at George Washington University, and my senior thesis was to create an interactive wallpaper similar to color forms. So I don't know how many of you out there remember color forms, but it was a game board where they used little cling pieces that would go on and off of a game board. So I decided to invent it for posters. I ended up going to Marvel Comics at the age of 26, pitched my idea, managed to borrow a couple $1,000s from my father, and they gave me the world rights to Spider-Man and X-Men. I end up going to the toy fair in New York City, showing the product, and I had all these salesmen telling me, oh, you're going to sell 1 million of them. Well, sure enough, no one showed up at my showroom, and I thought my career was going to be absolutely demolished as a result of this terrible, terrible situation. The last day rolls around, and this fellow from Brazil named Edson Santos comes into our showroom, and my father is standing with me, and they're talking about these drinks that they have in Brazil. I think they're called ipajimas. And sure enough, Edson and my father get into a conversation, and Edson says to my father, can I take a couple of these home? And sure enough, Edson takes a couple of them home. And I'm dreading the drive back to Philadelphia from New York City because I have to face my friends. And I don't know how I'm going to pay back the thousands of dollars that I borrowed from my dad to do the prototype. A week later, I get a phone call from Edson Santos. Danny, this is Edson. I'm calling you from Brazil. He said, can I buy a container of Spider-Man and a container of X-Men? How much is that going to cost?
Container.
Well,
container.
I thought,
Danny, most people that are listening don't know what a container is. Tell them what it is.
So I thought it was a box of 24 X-Men and a box of 24 Spider-Man. And sure enough, I said to Edson, you can have, I'll send them to you for free. He says, no, Danny, I mean a container that you put on a ship. Well, sure enough, Edson really meant a container that he put on a ship. The color form poster business actually into business. I subsequently got the world rights to Star Wars, Batman and Robin, Lost World, and a variety of other movies. And I think that eventually, I don't know if this is true or not, but I'm not suggesting that I'm going to take credit for it, but that was the impetus, I believe, in terms of using static cling to put on kids' walls.
I'm going to have to bring you back on for another episode. I mean, I just did, how do you go from that selling containers worth of these stickers that go on a wall, right? Big, large poster stickers. I'm looking at the fat head in my office right now. So I got one last question I have to ask. As everyone can tell, there's a reason why we call him Uncle Danny. One thing I noticed when I went to your office 10 years ago, and one of your, I think, attorneys mentioned it to me at the time, was you're a huge Bruce Springsteen fan and have a very large collection, well-established collection. Why Bruce Springsteen? And how do you go from, all right, I love Bruce Springsteen, I'm going to get his album, to, you know what, let me collect all of this guy's stuff?
I cannot take credit for that. That was, my dear friend, partner who loves Springsteen. And in fact, his Springsteen collection was used at the Constitution Center. And it was placed on exhibit for.
It was that's how big this is how big the collection is.
Yeah. And it's only expanded over time. And the portfolio of friends and relationships, I have lived a very blessed life and some amazing people. And I've had a lot of luck. And part of that luck is being around some really, really terrific people and friends that have a similar type of eclectic interests, just like you and your Browns and your Guardians and all of your nuances that Uncle Derek told me about.
Oh, yeah.
So, again, I've been blessed and I really feel fortunate to not only have the friends, but like you, we both have wonderful families that I think that we both attribute an enormous amount of our success to the women behind what it is that we do and the kids that we just live for. So,
well, it's funny. I know that I could probably we could definitely do a reality series of just hearing your stories of your friends going back to your college days. One story I'll never forget is being with you in Phoenix back in October and you bringing up, one of your best friends from law school who is now this massive attorney out west. And I go, how big is he? And folks, you won't believe this. Danny just literally asked random waiters if they could name the jingle of the attorney. And God knew it. I couldn't believe it. He asked 4 people. Each one literally sang the jingle and knew the phone number of the attorney that was one of Danny's best friends for decades now. Great story.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, really, my law school class went on to do amazing things. I could share story upon story, which will have everyone laughing. And I love you for giving me the time just to be with you and to share some of these stories and some of these thoughts. I love you, my brother.
I love you too. Now, folks, that's all the time we have for today. Thank you so much, Danny Schwarz, for being my guest today. You're awesome. We could go on forever, but my time, as you know, is limited. Folks, tune in at 10 a.m., 6 p.m., and 2 a.m. Eastern on Healthcare Now Radio. And as I always say, I'm just going to say, let's go Cleveland. That's all I'm going to say. Thank you so much for the time. On behalf of Danny and myself, thanks for joining. Have a great day.